hope I get to chat to all of you individually. At some point, I feel like that's where the conference really comes alive, when you really make connections with the people. You know, that's one thing I learned. Like, you're in such like a wealth of information. Like, you can't necessarily get all the workshops at the same time, but if you make those connections with people, you always have access to that information. So for me, it's so much about connecting with the people. Yeah, so my name is Sterling Toes. I'm from Detroit. I grew up on the east side of Detroit, Michigan. And I started getting into music production about '97. And I've always had an extreme love for sound. And I'm not just saying music itself, but the sound in entirety. And I really feel like, in a lot of ways, music is the ultimate portrait of humanity, because basically it falls subject to everything that humanity falls subject to. You know, in a lot of ways, genre is like race, you know, and there's, you know, social connotations to every sound that we hear. I'm actually working on a project with Diana right now, and it's like a very street project, and I'm working with a dude that grew up in the city and is having a real tough time in the streets. And so, like, my intention for this project was to create an album that reflected what was happening in the streets, but present it in a way in which is not really familiar. So actually, the signature instrument of this album is the cello. And the reason being is because oftentimes you hear somebody rapping about their trials and tribulations with selling dope or hustling or just trying to survive. You don't necessarily expect to hear a cello. You don't expect to hear harps. You don't expect to hear strings. You expect to hear 808. And that goes back to the social connotation, like you hear 808, like, you know, I know you guys familiar with, some of you guys familiar with Gucci Mane and Young Jeezy, and a lot of people make street music. And you hear 808, you hear that thump, you hear that boom, you hear people going down the street, and it's boom, 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 and there's a thump, you know, and that thump, that boom has a social connotation in itself, to where it's connected to street music in the way in which, you know, that guy that's aspiring to feel like he's worth something in his community, you know, hears that boom and it makes him think of the car that he wants, that's sitting on the rims that he wants, you know, that's going to attract the woman that he wants. So he hears that boom and it turns him on. It's a sexual impulse, almost like, wow, I like the way this feels, you know. And so it's one thing for me to place him in front of that, which you expect to hear him over, and it's another thing to hear him with the cello, to where you don't associate his experience with the cello. You associate the cello with affluence. You associate a cello with having things, with maybe rich white people or whatever else, you know. But so when you hear him talk about his situation of struggle and deprivation, and there's an instrument that brings on all these connotations of everything other than what he's talking about, it amplifies what he's actually saying. And so one thing that I found is that in a lot of ways, you know, just as I was saying about God and you know, religion in terms of music, in a sense, it's almost like God, love, whatever you want to call it, this energy that sort of connects us all and is communal and flows through all of us, is sound itself. And sound animates music. There is no music without sound. And so, as opposed to drawing from doctrines in music, you know, and music based on all these distinctions that are made, I think it's so important to connect the sound itself. To listen to a crying baby the way you listen to a harp. To listen to the water running the way you listen to a bass line. To listen to the wind and birds the way you listen to strings or whatever else. And so I really feel like our connection to sound is really what makes us one, because essentially, if you think about it, all sound is our ability to internalize the vibration of other objects. So every time we hear something, as you hear me speak, the vibration is coming from me is being internalized through your ears. So now it gets into a matter of intention.